There's a couple that I want to talk about. I want to talk about empathy and I want to talk about humility. Empathy is the practice of being able to think about how another person is feeling, as much as possible, putting one's own response or way of seeing the world aside to try to understand a situation from another person's perspective. So this is complex, right? Because a coach and a teacher might share a lot of characteristics and experiences in terms of their race and identity, gender, the ways that they were apprenticed into teaching, and their own experiences in schooling, or they could be really different. And so we can't always make the assumption that we can see a perspective from another person's eyes. But empathy, as we develop it over time, involves careful listening and listening as much as possible without judgment. That can be very difficult because sometimes people say things that are difficult for us. They might challenge our worldview, or they might, in our opinion, be not positive in terms of the students or the school environment. So it can be challenging to put your initial reactions aside and to really deeply listen. But I think that coaches really need to be able to practice empathy and to create situations where they can learn more about a person's perspective. And so one of my favorite questions in coaching is, in what ways is this situation related to your own experiences as a learner or as a student? And so if a teacher is responding in a particular way to a student in their classroom, sometimes they feel like that student is like them. And the student is, for lack of a better word, pushing their buttons because they see themselves a little bit in there. Other times they can't quite imagine what it would be like to be that student. And so asking them to think about their own background and their own experiences as a student and how they might be relevant to the situation can be really powerful for building empathy. And then the second one is humility. A coach said to me recently that one of the things that he had to learn when he was coaching actually a sport was that he might not have all of the answers. He might not know the right way to change a particular practice that one of his players was using in order to get a better result. Even though he was very much an expert in the sport, he had to exercise humility in thinking that he might not have the right answers. Similarly, when we're being coached, I think we have to practice that same kind of humility because the event in the classroom is not under our control. We don't have little puppet strings. We're not moving the students from here to there. And we are, of course, creating environments and we are, of course, designing these activities, but the students are too. The students are part of that design and they're part of that participation. And our best work as teachers comes when we recognize that the life of the classroom is not something to control or to manage. Rather, that when we build community, we build a sense of what we're doing here together as a class, then individuals can make small changes and ask for small changes in order to make the environment more productive for learning, more just, more inclusive, more equitable. And so we can only make those nudges towards equity when we recognize that everybody has a part in that work. To be coached, we have to enter into a conversation with an authentic sense of wanting to know better. What are the practices that are in place? What does the community believe and value? What are the aspects of practice and routines that seem to be really working well for the students? And then to figure out, where do we want to make small shifts and changes in order to make things better and more inclusive and more equitable? And so student learning outcomes is related to equity. When we have a classroom that doesn't feel like it's productive, we can typically see evidence in how students are doing. Some students are finishing their writing and developing their writing through revision and through conversations with others, and other students seem to be a little bit stuck and their writing is not developing as much. So how do we look at that as an equity issue, and that some students are being supported to develop their writing and other students aren't? How do we look at that as what we're coaching around, not around whether or not the teacher is doing mini lessons well or effectively engaging all of the students in a mini lesson? How do we turn our attention to actually what the students are doing and how to support the students?